Hello, and welcome again to my show, Searching for Integrity. My name really is John Smith, and I'm searching for people with integrity. Why? Because our country suffers from IDD, Integrity Deficit Disorder. Today we have Sue Humphrey and her book, I Want to Run, and I want to talk to Sue. You're on, Sue. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good. Very good. Very good. Now you're in Austin right now, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Many trips I've made to Austin over the last 30 or 40 years. And I'm
Yeah, it's
glad.
a popular place.
Well, it's changed. I know that.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
And
Traffic
sometimes not.
has gotten.
That's right. It has not stopped. Well, let's get to the book. I like the way you laid out the table of contents. That's how I get my own feet on the ground. And let's do about the author. Over 50 years of coaching experience. That's a lot of time.
That's it. Yeah. Yes. So I realized very quickly my athletic skills would not keep up with my love of the sport. And so I switched to the coaching when I was mid to high school. And so I developed with the age group team and learned from there. So that's where the longevity comes in.
I was seeing here that when people buy your book, they're going to have a lot of things to learn about. Probably a young son or daughter.
I hope so. I mean, that's the plan. Is the way I structured it would be for a young coach. I mean, it's written for a younger coach or a parent or even a middle school, early high school age student who is interested in learning about running and the sport of track and the different events and how to coach them and some sample workouts and so forth. So it's kind of a beginner's guide, if you will, to the sport of track.
Sure. I as a kid I ran track, and then as I graduated into lost my ear here. I I ended up doing some cross country. This was in Oklahoma for me, and then I went into wrestling.
Oh, okay.
You always got to make your weight.
Yeah, that I don't envy.
And then I moved to Texas, and there wasn't a single wrestling mat anywhere.
Got to be football.
That's right. Got a big football. Exactly. Um, how do you go? Do you offer yourselves in terms of consulting?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I'm working, I work with individual or group lessons and help out mostly high school age kids right now.
Right.
And so we're right in the middle of the high school season. And so we meet on the weekends when they don't have meets and work on primarily the jumps. And
Right.
it's been pretty successful. And I'm also doing virtual coaching. So if a coach wants to reach out and analyze and talk over techniques and videos of their athletes with me, we do that too.
Well, that really covers the most, I think, that people are looking for. And it's at their fingers, it's right at the fingers. So they're going to want to use it and have the child. I have a grandson who's 18. He's a senior. And he's been everywhere trying to find a college that will take him. He runs 100, 200, and 400.
Oh, great.
And he was making real progress. until this about 3 weeks ago, he began grabbing behind his knee. My son was describing it's something with the quad muscle, but I'm saying, wait a sec, the quad's in front.
Right.
Yeah.
Sounds more hamstring, knee issues.
Yeah. So anyway, I told him all about you.
Okay.
But he's all the way in terms of his own logic. He's always been this way. He's got a twin brother. And I just was talking to him just before the show here. I said, "Up, I got to go. I don't want to hear anything you're telling me." He kept saying, "Well, you're going to have a doctor." I said, "No, you don't. You have to physical therapist." "Well, you can't get a physical therapist without a doctor."
Some of that is true. Yes. Need to have that referral.
Yes,
Yes.
that's wonderful. I had this a long history in terms. You've seen a lot, I think, and a lot of that was the. When was that? Was it 64 or 68 when the racial result began? Is that when that was?
68. Yes. That was
68.
the Olympics. Mhm.
Yes. Yeah. And there I was in Vietnam.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very critical time, and it's been that team, the 68 team. A lot of the members are still around as active alumni for USA track and field. And so they'll come to our different events, and the stories and the just conversations that they have are just amazing, as to what they went through and what you don't read about. And
Right.
likewise, I'm sure the stories from Vietnam that you have are that way too. It was a very
Right.
traumatic time for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Trying to think of the names of the big stars in that particular Olympics. And he's in Houston.
Tommy Smith and John Carlos were the ones that raised their fist
Right.
on the victory stand. And then on the women's side, Wyoming Attias was the top female sprinter. Madeline Manning Mims, who is an 800 runner, she won. So, and ironically, Dick Fosbury, who created the Fosbury flop, the style of high jumping, that's
Sure.
when he won. And unfortunately, we just lost him a few weeks ago to cancer. So that was a big loss for us.
Oh, no. No bueno.
Yeah, not good.
Well, that has to be the beginning of, I guess, everybody for track. And whether or not what color it is, do you see any of that overlapping over the years, making it better?
The racial situation, you mean?
Yeah, that started in 68. Yes.
Yes and no. I mean, I think we go through swoops and ups and downs with that. We don't have the extreme, and I use that term kind of loosely, extreme segregation that we did in the 60s, because of course that was the whole sociology at the time. But there are still very much situations and occurrences where we run into things racially, and still some with the gender, and the male female inequalities. So it's gotten better, but I don't want to say it's definitely the complete opposite. We still have issues sometimes with accusations or innuendos, I should say, of, you can't be a white sprinter, or, a African has to be a distance runner, those stereotypes that aren't true.
Those are gone.
Yes.
Those are gone. Yeah. I tell you a good story. this was last summer. We went to the national, and I don't want to call it NIT, but something like that. It was in Greensboro, stateswide, and we all flew over there, Greensboro, North Carolina,
Mhm.
and we were there, and the pack was just packed in to the places to sit, places to stand, all of that, and it was amazing to me how the non-whites were not winning. Excuse me, they were winning. The
Oh, they
whites
were
weren't.
winning.
Yeah, the whites weren't winning. And I thought my grandson actually, for some reason, he decided to eat an apple before he was going to race, and that had him throw up. So, but with all of those people there, you know, I think, and I was looking all the way around and just everywhere. I think I was the sixth person that wasn't black. It didn't bother me. My squad in Vietnam was, me and white guy. The other
Mhm.
guys are black. Um, but it was amazing to me how much they are attend and how their athletes are at the top, very much to the top.
Well, yeah, I think, as to a lot of times, again, it comes from our parents that, a lot of kids, they want to be football players or basketball players or, kind of what dad or mom are encouraging. And
Mhm.
Soccer is now more this generation. It wasn't so much the parents' generation. And so I think, track and field and basketball, those are traditionally, sports where African Americans, blacks, whatever, people of color, let's say, have excelled, and not at the expense of them not excelling in swimming. Now we have some athletes of color winning gold medals in swimming, but it
Mhm.
hasn't been a tradition. There aren't the role models that there are in track and basketball. And so
Right.
a lot of these kids, come toward track and they're successful at it, whether they be black or white or green or yellow or whatever. But
Right.
I think that's the beauty of track, is that there's so many different opportunities that it doesn't depend on what race you are, but it's on your skill, that you can be a
Right.
distance runner, you can be a thrower, you can be a sprinter. I think you're talking about the Junior Olympic Nationals in Greensboro
Yes,
last summer.
that's right.
And that's a big age group meet. And so there you've got youth, ages 8 or 9 to 18,
That's
19
right.
years old. And
Boys
so
and
you
girls.
see, yes, boys, girls, and the parents do travel. I mean, that's the thing with age group sports, is you always have a crowd compared to some of the older ages. You go
Mhm.
to a track meet of college only athletes and the crowds are much thinner because the parents aren't there to follow. So that's a little different. But
Right.
I think track has a tradition of, primarily athletes
Mhm.
of color, but again, it goes across the board. It's whoever loves the sport.
Well, I think that we can no longer avoid the new challenge in terms of who can play, who can race, who cannot, who can get out of the pool. Um, what do we do with that?
What are you referring to now?
Transgender.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's what you were going for. Um, well, obviously, this is a very hot topic right now, and my personal opinion is that what I've listened to from doctors and sports scientists and people that are in the biology world, let's say, that
Right.
even if a person who was born a male but goes through these different transitions of estrogen and so forth and hormones, they still will have a unfair advantage over a born female. And so personally, and there's always going to be differences, but even women who were born female have different levels of hormones in them. Some have more hormones than others, but I think, in my view is that the gender you were born is the gender you need to compete in. The transgender group is now a new group, and I see nothing wrong with them having a third group, if you will. In other words, male athletes, female athletes, and other, and that then everybody gets the opportunity. But I'm afraid from what I hear with the scientists that if we let people go back and forth, male to female, especially, that the physiological differences are such that the natural born female is going to be at a disadvantage and basically run out of her sport. And that is what I don't want to see, obviously. The few transgender females that have been competing as females, but that were originally males, have dominated. They come in with very little experience in some cases and dominate the women's events. And they might have been not even able to make a varsity male team. And now all of a sudden they're a national champion. Well, I think on the women's side, and I think that's very unfair. Women have fought too long and too hard to have equal opportunities in the sport world, to have this type of situation now come and derail us. That's why I say it's much easier in some of the national governing bodies. I know swimming and track have gone on record as saying, the transgender athlete will not represent on Olympic teams, the US on the Olympic teams. Again, on a local situation, if they want to have a separate grouping, more power, that's fine. I mean, I see nothing wrong. It's not going to upset that many time schedules and so forth to give them the opportunity to compete. We've added Paralympian events for that group of individuals. So, I see nothing really different with adding a different group for these individuals. But I don't feel they should be competing against the natural female.
I wonder the length of time that something is going to be done. Are you expecting something in the coming year? Are they
For it to change, to let them compete?
Well,
no, not in the coming year, no.
Okay, interesting.
They just went on record, the US and World Athletics, which is the international governing body for track and field, just went on record actually to follow what the international swimming people did, which was to say that transgender athletes are not going to represent the US on international teams. And so, again, swimming was the first one that said that. Track kind of drug their feet, but now came along and have said that. And I think one of the best testimonies, if you will, is that Caitlyn Jenner, who used to be Bruce Jenner, has gone on record saying he thinks that they should not be competing against the natural female, that they should have a separate group. So Caitlyn is a perfect example. If she was 30, 40 years younger, of an athlete who would have come in, and my goodness, she dominated the male side. Can you imagine what she would have done to the women's side? And we see still some of the world records that are held by the East German females, and I use that term loosely, back in the 80s, that were heavily steroided, and that those records are just now 40 years later becoming approachable.
Right.
So we need to respect women's sports also.
I agree. I'm reading here, there's no one with more experience to provide a blueprint of how to learn. And that could be any sport. And
Very true.
You're that one person.
Well, thank you. I've been around the block a few times. I've seen a few things.
Absolutely. I was looking at your gosh, all these things that you've done, all these, this biography. It's just amazing. So I counted 18 lines of what this is all about is volunteer assistant coach, head manager of the women's Olympic team. You got a lot of things that you've done, very much so.
Yes,
You
yes.
got to be very proud of that.
Thank you. No, I am. As you sit back, you get in retirement age and, you kind of reflect back and obviously there are things that you look at and say, gee, maybe I should have done this or done that. But overall, I think, I've been pretty lucky and very blessed to have achieved all the things and the opportunities that I have had, and hopefully have helped a lot of youngsters along the way and helping young coaches now, mentoring them so that they can carry on and exceed what I've done. I think that's one of the goals.
Well, you probably had an opportunity to deal with that with the track and field mass, and they listened to you. I would assume, or turn to you.
Well, a lot of times they do. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, when I first started, women in the coaching realm for track and field were very rare and not always respected. It was kind of like, well, you're there, but, go get coffee type of thing. But I guess I just kind of pushed my way in, and I feel I volunteered for things that most people probably wouldn't have. And it gave me invaluable experience, but also showed people that I was serious and that I was a good worker and, would do what I said I was volunteering to do. And so coaches are not always getting money and getting paid, unfortunately, especially in track. Some of the salaries I read of these basketball and football coaches, I think I picked the wrong sport. But, it's a love of wanting to see youngsters of all ages, kind of watching where they start with you and then the progress they make. And it's not always that they're going to be a state champion or a world champion or Olympic champion. Even somebody who improves a few feet in one of the jumps or a few seconds or a few tenths, and to see that look in their eye when they suddenly, the light goes off that, oh, I can do this, that those are the rewards that obviously you can't pay the bills with, but they do help.
It certainly does. I'm reading here, Sue Humphrey is the consummate teacher. Her patience with her athletes and attention to detail in all areas of coaching is amazing. One of the best to ever do it. That's quite an accomplishment.
Thank you. Thank you.
And people are going to tune into now once they see your book.
Well, hopefully, like I say, it's a nice beginner. It's not a heavy, intense book for an experienced coach. I do give a variety of off the track opportunity information. In other words, track is not just when you go to practice. It's, keeping your grades up, your diet, your sleep, the mental preparation. I also start the book with a history of our sport and the Olympics and a little bit of the history of how fast. Do you realize that these sprinters are running 25 miles an hour? Get in your car and drive 25, 30 miles an hour and think there's a human right along next to you. I think sometimes we can't always fathom what marks these athletes are performing. I always like to drive under a freeway overpass, and they have the height and it might say 15 feet. And I look at it and I think, God, I just had a kid that I coached long jump that far, and it's amazing. You look at, the world record in long jump is close to 30 feet. Yeah, well, how many buses or how many cars is that long, and that a human being just ran down and took off and flew through the air. And so I think we need to do a little more comparison that way so that the general public can really imagine what these performances are. You know, high jump, 8 feet. That's like jumping as high as the doorway in your house.
Oh yeah, sure. I've seen those. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I don't think I could have done that.
No,
But then again, and will probably have died trying, but
they're
so I'm
right.
glad of that. Well, let me ask you to inform my audience, my listeners, as to where they can find your book.
Okay, well, it's on Amazon, and you can just either put in my name, Sue Humphrey, or the title, I Want to Run. It's a Kindle ebook or the paperback book, like you see here. And it's on Amazon. You can get it within a day or two through them.
That's true. I bought one for my son and sent it out yesterday.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah, and then we can argue some more, my son and I.
There you go. Exactly. Say on page 24, you're supposed to do this.
Yeah, it's a good thing you've got here, and it's very needed, I would say. Somebody brings these kids along. Yeah,
Well, I think that's the thing is, you know, a lot of time youth coaches especially are not always that well trained to be coaches.
true.
And this is something that I have a passion for because it's going to be so much better for the student athlete if they are taught the right way to begin with. And if they're given the right techniques and the right mental and physical preparation to evolve through the different ranks of high school track, college track, or whatever. Many college coaches will say that the worst thing is they'll get these elite high school athletes, and then the first year or two, they have to retrain them because the kid has been getting by on talent and not so much on technique. And so they have to retrain the athlete on the scientific, the biomechanics of motion. And so it would be so much better for the student if we taught them that when they were young, and then they could just progress along. And that's what I'm hoping to do.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well done. I hope you will.
Yes.
I want to thank my listeners today. I want to thank you for coming in and listening to me while I'm sending you about the U.S. They probably are going to get that book.
Good. Good. I appreciate it.
And let's see, the listeners tuning in, searching for integrity, and so long and happy trails to all until we meet again.